What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It has just been a crazy past couple of days, and at least we're back up into the green. This past day, we've seen, obviously, the markets really start to come back up. Now, I am definitely not one of those people that thinks we're all of a sudden just going to be shooting off to the moon, but I wanted to gather some information today because I have some cool information about the Fed. Jerome Powell had his confirmation meeting, so we have some economic information, inflation data, XRP news, and also some predictions that I feel like are going to be impacting things, regulations, and also just threats to everything overall. So just a holistic view of where things are. Definitely good, though, to see Bitcoin go back up, Ethereum going back up. You see you got all the other top 5, top 10, XRP. You know, things are looking a little bit more green today, which is good. But again, like I said, I am not going to be foolish enough to just all of a sudden think that it's going to start going up to the moon right now. You know, it's one of those things where we see so many corrections. So what can we see, though? I did want to start out with by sharing this article here. You see from actually Realtor.com here, or from, I'm sorry, Realtor Magazine. Sotheby's offers a real mansion in the universe. I think this is actually one of the first houses to, you see right here, a mansion under construction in Miami is breaking new ground in real estate by being sold as 2 properties. They're selling it basically as a physical one and an identical one in the Metaverse. That's pretty cool. They're calling it, looks like they're partnering with Voxel Architects there, and they have basically, yeah, it says the first home sale of its kind. It's going to be in the sandbox. I find that surprising that nothing else has been sold like this before. The physical home is set to be complete in the 4th quarter of this year. It's going to be in Miami. Basically, they get the NFT and the real version of the home. It's 11,000 square feet. It's on a 1-acre lot in Miami. So that's interesting to see there. All right, moving on to some Ripple news. This is what I wanted to cover too. You see here, this was actually from yesterday. Attorneys for Ripple Labs filed a response to the federal judge Monday, asserting that obviously the SEC is misapplying a recent ruling in another case. I looked a little bit into this in case you hadn't heard. There was another recent case. The SEC actually, the judge sided in favor of the SEC back on December 22nd. It was in regards to another type of security, and you see they're basically Ripple saying, well, that doesn't apply to them. It was a fair notice. It was another fair notice type argument there, you see. So you find that interesting. I've definitely been watching this case closely. I hold XRP. Going to keep holding it either to the moon or to gloom. You know what I mean? It's either we're going up or we're going down. And that's all I really got to say about that. You see here also, too, we were thinking that it would be settled pretty soon. But, you know, even though it's rallying today, you see here, they may be getting it pushed back a month. Obviously, you see, because they're saying basically Omicron. The Fox Business journalist Eleanor Terrett, she revealed that the case between the SEC and Ripple is going to be pushed back a month, obviously because of the rapid spread there of the variant. So we'll have to keep a watch out on that. I mean, it's going to be some time this year. You know, you see the SEC versus Ripple case been going on since 2020, but we all know the story here. So we're eager to see. You know, Brad Garlinghouse says he believes the SEC is going to be concluded this year because Ripple, we still see they're adopting other partners in other parts of the country. They go after these really large payment systems that have, you know, tons of, you know, affiliated banks that are under them. So that's how they're getting traction. And so they don't really need the United States. This is all just kind of a show. So, you know, the big thing going into 22 obviously is just going to be we're watching inflation and how governments will be regulating the space more. It's already too big to be regulated. That's the thing. That's the number one thing preventing crypto from just exploding right now is this regulation, and also how stable coins impact the system that we're in right now. So I wanted to share this as well. You see FTX founder, now he was actually Sam Bankman-Fried. He was speaking in front of Congress a few weeks ago, was it maybe a month ago? It seems time just flies by, but he's actually really young, super rich. He's basically the founder and CEO of crypto exchange FTX. He called out regulators. He was apparently speaking, I want to say it was yesterday or 2 days ago, at the Asian Financial Forum, an event organized by Hong Kong's government to highlight new opportunities within the region's economic landscape. So he basically saying, he's pointing out that instead of focusing on determining whether assets are securities, regulators must focus on consolidating the regulations and creating a new rulebook on crypto. Basically, the long and short of it is we don't need even more regulating bodies, even more rules. We just need to kind of like codify down like what actually is the framework. We don't need to complicate it. We need to make it simple so that it is very clear what things are. You know, like need some very clear definitions on that. So he also said that a framework that focuses on disclosures and the prevention of fraud may be more important than labeling assets as securities. While the FTX CEO didn't specify the regulatory bodies he was calling out, we all know who. Many regulators worldwide are focused on classifying tokens as securities. However, he's convinced this will not protect investors. Well, you know, they're mainly in charge of protecting the banks. That's mainly who it's going to want. They're not protecting us. Additionally, the crypto billionaire also highlighted the regulatory frameworks for other asset classes, noting that the same should be done for digital assets, of course. Right? We'll see what happens. Definitely, yeah, he's saying many experts expect many advancements in the standard. So that's basically, I see the same thing. We talk about it a lot on the channel because it is going to be the number one thing that impacts things. So moving right along, because you see mainstream is adopting. I found this article here. You see Meek Mill, he's a American rapper, if you've not heard of him. He's saying, get ETH. Rapper tells 10 million followers. I think this is pretty cool. This just shows you how big mainstream celebrities, it's funny he's telling them ETH, though. You know, hey, again, I hold ETH. I feel like ETH, even with this out, you know, the 2.0, who knows when it is going to come out. I'm still holding ETH, you know. I'm holding it as a hedge. He's basically saying, he's telling his 100 million, he's telling his 10 million Twitter followers, and basically, you know, I'm sure, who knows how other many followers on other channels, 100 million streams first week in October. Anyway, he's like, you're going to need that ETH address to hear this new mixtape. So it'll be curious, I guess. Presumably, you see he's probably just going to turn it into an NFT. But why would you put it on an ETH? You know, it's like, I mean, ETH, it is the largest one for right now, but it's like there's still, we've hardly even reached any type of adoption. It's like there are other, once we have other, Hedera, once we have other platforms that can do all this that Ethereum could do, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So we'll see kind of how that goes. New and out today, though, as well, inflation, we got the latest CPI data in, and it's up month over month. It was like 0.5%. Prices have gone up, and you see here, actually, consumer prices jumped 7% in 2021 overall. So we're just, you see, right, the consumer price index jumped 7% last year, the fastest pace since 1982. And that was what the Jerome Powell was talking a lot. So let's go into that. I had several things interesting about that. I watched the confirmation hearing in front of the Senate Banking Committee yesterday, and, you know, overall, they were saying things we basically expected. There was a lot of senators grilling him on certain, views, but essentially the takeaways here is what we're here. We're here to kind of summarize this up because this is very heavily weighing on the crypto market right now. He said the Fed is willing to basically adapt pretty nimbly on policy as we go through the year. And he said steps are going to be taken towards normalization in regards to interest rates and monetary easing, but no decision has been made on timing. They're saying at least 3, maybe even 4 or more interest rate hikes next year, which essentially is going to also just cause the flow of money. And a lot of what we're seeing in crypto as well, with them putting money into the economy, that's flowing into crypto and other assets. So they're saying Powell said he expects inflation to continue into the middle of this year. And his forecast for the economy is very positive in the second quarter, as he expects Omicron to peak and clear out during the first quarter. So based on previous observations, the Fed expects the economy to be able to deal with these outbreaks and is open to the changing environment. So monetary policy is going to have to adapt. You know, you see they're saying basically 3 interest rates are on the books for this year potentially, but it really just depends on the progress of inflation and that they are very attentive to the economy. Right. Well, let's see. We're going to have to just keep paying attention to that. Now, I did find this little clip of Senator Toomey asking him. I wanted to play it real quick here just so you can see it. I find this pretty interesting because CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, are one of the most, if not the most, critical issue shaping what happens with the crypto market in 2022. And it's definitely on the minds of folks like Senator Toomey. Well, I feel like overall, he understands crypto better than a lot of legislators in this country. Listen to this clip.
Mr. Chairman, 2 quick questions for you. One regarding a central bank digital currency. Some have advocated, as you know, that that a central bank digital dollar be used and developed in such a fashion that individual Americans have retail accounts with the Fed, and the Fed becomes the retail banker for America. It seems to me that there is absolutely nothing in the history, the experience, the expertise, the capabilities of the Fed that lend the Fed to being a retail bank. Is that a fair observation?
I would say it is, yes.
Thank you. A second, I know we're going to get our report soon, and I'm very much looking forward to this, as you and I have discussed. But I wonder if you could respond to this. If Congress were to authorize and the Fed were to pursue a central bank digital dollar, is there anything about that ought to preclude a well-regulated, privately issued stable coins from coexisting with a central bank digital dollar?
No, not at all.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Toomey. Chair Powell, the recent you've been
so there you have it right there. There you have it.
This issue, but I wanted to.
There you have it. Basically, there's not going to be. They were concerned that there was going to be some type of potential conflict
from Senator
with my video kept playing there. Let's stop playing the video. They were worried about there being potential conflict with stablecoins existing as well as central bank digital currency. Now, he did also mention, he was like, where's my report, right? Jerome Powell apparently is due. He hinted at there is a Federal Reserve report coming out discussing CBDCs. Now, he did mention in the confirmation hearing that it was one of those things where he doesn't expect there to be a lot of directing guidance, just more an overall phrasing of questions and points of getting things started. So, again, maybe it's not so much of him saying what should happen, more of just opening up the floor to figuring this out. Like he said, everything that they do sometimes takes 3 or 4 meetings to even get things out. So the Senator Toomey there was asking, like, well, when is this report? Let's go ahead and get it out. So he kind of put him to the fire there. So, and then also that does sound promising. That sounds like he kind of teed that question up like, well, if we do have stable coins issued, can those coexist kind of with what we have right now, with the way that the system's being reshaped, rather? And it sounds like that's the direction they're moving. U.S. lawmaker hints at upcoming crypto legislation as Jerome Powell says Fed will release report. That was the headline there. So you see here another addressing Idaho Senator Mike Crappa remotely from the Dirksen Senate office. This was another one that spoke yesterday. He said the Fed's report on digital currencies wasn't quite where we needed to get it, but he was going to be releasing it soon. Now, that was what Jerome Powell said. The Fed chair cited changes in monetary policy as part of the reason for the delayed report, which is expected to address policy surrounding possible rollout of CBDCs. Now, some senators just don't want that because they're saying, hey, that this takes away privacy from individuals. So, it's more going to be an exercise in asking questions and seeking input from the public rather than taking a lot of positions on various issues, although we do take some positions. The report really is ready to go, and I expect we will drop it, I hate to say it again, he said, in coming weeks. So that's another, like I said, it's going to be a huge thing for what is happening this year. The Powell suggested there's no rush in the U.S. releasing a digital dollar despite other countries, including China, moving ahead with CBDCs. In December, he spoke in favor of stablecoins, said they could be a useful efficient consumer serving part of the financial system if they're properly regulated. Well, again, be interesting to see what happens with that. You see another one right here is actually a bill that is introduced by Representative Tom Emmer, proposing a bill to bar the Fed from creating a digital currency for consumers. So this guy is actually wanting to ban it from actually happening. The bill sponsor, Representative Tom Emmer, says that CBDCs pose a threat to privacy. And he proposed a law on Wednesday that's going to prohibit the Federal Reserve from issuing a central bank digital currency directly to individuals. So it's coming at a time when central banks across the world, including the Fed, are considering whether to introduce digital versions of their currency, or in the case of China, have done so already. Yeah, the digital yuan's already out. It's already being implemented. All the bunch of payment systems all in Asia are implementing it and running with it. You can actually get it as a U.S. citizen, and you can trade it. There's ways you can actually trade this now. So we'll see. That's another very interesting point of what's happening globally. Emmer warns that digital currency issued by the Fed could be a slippery slope, though, in which consumers could one day be forced to register with the central bank to access money, which could in turn lead to mass surveillance of their financial activity. No one wants that. That's definitely not what I feel like a lot of us really, truly want. So it is a fine line there we've got to look at. But the thing is, I don't think we're really being fed the whole narrative. Many of us don't really willingly want to subject ourselves to mass surveillance of the financial system, but I feel like the narrative that we're being seen and taught and shown by certain, agencies and people in this world, right? You have to look at things. Well, what's really happening behind the scenes? Because at the end of the day, some of these corporations and places want CBDCs to take over. We have the IMF, the WEF warning about cyber pandemics. We have different agencies planning on cyber attacks, and so I feel like we don't willingly get the CBDC, but there's going to become a point where eventually what happens if the system does have some kind of issue or a cyber pandemic or banks fail, right? And the Fed has to go and now bail and back up the failing banks. The Fed would own everything to get that stimulus, where if you're needing income or you're needing stimulus just to keep yourself afloat, you have to go and get the central bank digital currency. You have to go and get a Fed wallet, right? And you have to use it for certain things. You wouldn't be able to invest that money in stocks or other cryptos by then. So by the time you're having to depend on the government for CBDCs, you can only use it for basic necessities. And that's kind of the system there I feel like things may be moving towards, where we see things controlled more tightly like that, right? So here's a cool resource as well, cbdctracker.org. You can see here in the United States, Project Hamilton and the United States of America, CBDC, kind of tracks everything in the world, who's doing what. Now, you see here, the IMF is what I'm talking about, saying growing connection between crypto and traditional finance pose new risks. So they're prepping us for what is the narrative here? They're issuing a warning to investors that growing link between crypto assets and the stock market may pose a risk to the financial system. Interesting, with inflation being at 7%. In a new report, the IMF says that the rising popularity of digital assets combined with their volatile price could spell trouble for financial stability as cryptos continue to intertwine with traditional markets. The intraday price volatility, they're talking about how they different trade. Basically, they're saying these findings suggest that crypto assets may no longer be considered a fringe asset class and could potentially pose financial stability due to their extreme price volatility. They just don't want us getting rich. That's what happens. They want to be able to regulate it. The cyber risks add to the climate threat, the World Economic Forum warns. So they're having their annual Davos meeting where they normally meet in Switzerland, but because of, the global challenges, they've not been able to have it. They're having it globally. That's a large meeting the World Economic Forum hosts, and they release a report usually ahead of time. In this one, they're actually warning, you see here, usually released ahead of the annual elite winter gathering of CEOs and world leaders in the Swiss ski resort of Davos. But the event has been postponed for a second year because of everything going on. I don't want to say the word. The World Economic Forum still plans some assistance. So basically, they're saying the pandemic forced a huge shift, requiring many people to work or attend class from home. It's basically everything is digital now. There's way more things and systems depending upon digital platforms and devices to aid that if something were to happen. We're at a point now where cyber threats are going faster than our ability to effectively prevent and manage them, which is going to be an issue. Cyber attacks are becoming more aggressive and widespread. Criminals use tougher tactics to go after more vulnerable targets. Things are easier to get and take advantage of, right? And we're only going to see this happen more and more. All the things that are interconnected together, that if something were to happen, we would see something bad. And we already know that when we talked about this before, that the IMF, 10 countries simulate cyber attack on global financial systems. So they're already preparing us for it. They're already leading us down that hole, that rabbit hole of like what is to come. Now, this is 10 countries in the world, right? They don't simulate these war. Now, some people say, well, they do this as stress testing, which is true. We do want to stress test the system, but in cases like this, they did the same thing before the last big global major disruption, right? They're plotting and planning for this because who knows? Things like this, what a convenient excuse, an enemy we cannot see, what a convenient excuse to herald in the new reset, to herald in a new system where now we wouldn't have willingly have taken over central bank digital currencies, but now it's being foisted upon us because we have no choice. And I wanted to play this, and we're going to wrap this video up. This is actually from the World Economic Forum, talking about how solar flares could crash the internet. This was back from November, but again, check this out.
A neutron comes down, hits that memory, hits a bit of silicon in that memory state and turns a 0 into a 1 or a 1 into a 0. Everything in our digital world is stored by ones and zeros, so we clearly don't want them changing.
Nope. All right, so that was just kind of showing you that, again, this is one of those things that they're prepping us for. They're one of those things that if something like this were to happen, I found this interesting. We'll wrap up with this. This right here, there was apparently the University of Colorado Boulder recently published a paper in the journal Nature about a solar flare. It's called a super flare, basically, that was observed from a young star 111 light years from Earth. Basically, to sum this up, the flare came out. This flare always comes out 30 minutes before the coronal mass ejection, which is basically a bunch of hot plasma that comes spewing out. And if this were to happen with the sun, basically it would fry satellites in orbit and shut down the power grids, serving entire cities. So again, it would basically be like a large sun sneeze. I like that analogy there. But that would not be bad. It would definitely cause a lot of issues. So the takeaway here is be alert. Be aware of what's going on. Don't keep your cryptos on exchanges. Be safe and, be stacking the right kind of assets. Be aware on this channel. Now, I'm going to wrap up. Appreciate every single one of you following and subscribing. I see we're just continuing to grow at such a what I think, a fast pace. I love every single one of you really is coming by and supporting and commenting. I read every single one as much as I can. Leave a like on this video. Definitely helps push this out. I know this video is a little bit longer, but I like to just condense a bunch of really relevant stuff of what's going on macroeconomically, on top of just the the deep diving and updates on the actual individual products. Because more so, this is more important. This is just as important. I don't want to say more important, but just as important. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up with this one, and let's actually see this, and I'll see you on the next video.